And back once again with part 3 of my little introductory video series to the General Geology online class for the summer of 2010. Maybe I shouldn't date that so I can use these things in the future. But anyways, you never know what they'll do at eCourse, so I guess I should keep these updated on a yearly basis. Okay, so far we've looked at the general structure of the course. We've looked at things about the table of contents, specifically gradebook, email, doc sharing. Then we went back to the course home area. We talked about announcements and talked in detail about what's in this key terms and pre-quizzes thing. Again, don't forget that Prentice Hall site, Pearson site, that is associated with the 8th edition of this text. You know, the questions they're asking for the most part are, generally the same. It's the general information that's contained in the text today. The new text has been updated with some new chapters. Again, not really part of this course. It's beyond this course. Although I may make something available at the end of the semester as extra credit, depending on how things go in general. But we'll see. We'll worry about that in the future. So for the material you're now committed to having to address, the material in that textbook and on that site is very applicable, so it'll help you prepare for those quizzes and exams. Okay, so remember that. Very important resource. The other thing I want to point out is we're going to start going through a few of the chapters. I'm not going to go through all of them to show you how they're structured and where you'll find things. But let's talk a moment about assessment in this class. As I mentioned, if it's a quiz or an exam, or the threaded discussions for that matter, which are the 3 ways you're going to be assessed, it's open book, open note. Okay, so there's no problem with having your books open and resourcing things, or researching things, excuse me. The threaded discussions, basically, when you're ready to give an answer, you just go in and log in and post your answer. On the quizzes and exams, they're timed events. In the case of the quizzes, they're 10 question assessments, multiple choice, true, false. They're randomly selected out of a test bank for each chapter, and I think you're allotted 50 or 55 minutes for each one of those. Now that gives you time to, if you don't recall exactly what something is, to go back through the text. One thing again I will advise you want to go in prepared. You want to go in and read through each chapter ahead of time. I would, and I strongly advise you actually do that, and use the chapter outlines as you're doing that. Make some additional notes so you know where to go in and find things. It'll just make your life much easier. The way the questions will come at you and the way the text bank has been structured, it's, for the most part, let's say somewhere between 6 and 8 of the questions should be, within the reading and fairly obvious. Okay, but 2 to 4 of the questions, again depending on which questions they pull for you, would be something that's either going to be a little bit more in depth in the reading, not quite as obvious, or something that's testing your comprehension. How much are you actually learning from this thing? This is no longer just a give and take course. Even though this is a general education science course, there's supposed to be educating you in the background information relative to geology. Part of the reason why you're in college is to learn how to grow, to reason and comprehend things, and so we're trying to bring you to the next level. So there's some of those questions as well. Put in the time, put in the effort. People do well. A lot of people get A's and B's in this class. A number of C's. Very few people get D's and F's. The people that don't get D's and F's, when I go back and look at the amount of time they put in, yes, I can do that, folks. They don't put in the time. They open an assessment shortly before it closes. They don't spend any time. For the most part, there's a rare exception when somebody's truly struggling, but most of the people that don't do well in this class, and even in the C range, didn't really put in the time to do well. So it is going to take time, even though it's online. So remember that. Okay, so how are these things structured? The exams. Well, the exams, there's 4 of them, and they basically have a combined test bank for the chapters that are associated with each one of those sections. So the 4 exams, the first exam will come after you finish the first 3 chapters, chapters 1, 2, and 3. It will have a test bank that comprises all possible questions that were in chapters 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so some of those questions you might have seen before. Some of them you might not have, because that test bank is rather comprehensive, so there's a lot of questions there that can draw from. But it only covers that part of the course. The second exam addresses the items. Excuse me, let me get to the right slide place here. I have this thing shrunk so I can actually get it into the recording screen. But it actually will deal with chapters 4, 6, 7, and 8. That's in exam number 2, only covering chapters 4 through 8, that segment of the class. And again, its test bank combines all of the question test banks for all the quizzes. And it draws from that when it's creating the exam. Some of those questions, again, you might have seen before. Exam number 3, chapters 12, 11, and 5, again dealing with certain elements of geology, are comprised in that thing. And it's only in that section that you'll find questions relative to there. Okay? And then as far as the final exam, it isn't a true comprehensive final exam. It's only addressing that last segment of materials in chapters 16, 17, 23, 9, and so forth. Okay. If we go back here and start to look at a few of these things, if you open up the tab for chapter 1, you'll notice that there's a quiz here. Okay. There's the animation. So in some of these things, there's some animations available. Those are, you can link to those things and actually see how things happen visually. How the hydrologic cycle works, how the nebula hypothesis works in this case. If you click on the quiz, it walks you through a sequence of steps to where you'll actually initiate the quiz. This first quiz is open from tomorrow, May 10th, when the course starts, till May 15th. And you have, it doesn't tell you there, you can only take it once, but I believe they're 55 minutes long. If we go back to the Intro tab, where you open this thing up, you'll notice there's a short little overview of the chapter, gives you some introductory material, gives you the learning objectives. And in this case, it tells you that you probably want to go to the doc sharing area and look at the chapter outlines. Okay, so we'll close this one. If we look at chapter 2, more animations. This is where your first threaded discussion comes into play. Okay, another way in which you're graded. Here you're asked to go in and provide a number of responses. I forget whether it's 2 or 3. 2, excuse me, as it says up here. Your first initial response relative to what it's asking here, and then after you read some of your classmates' responses, a follow-up response to that. And you do that by scrolling down this area, clicking on the response tab. It opens up a little window where you can open some things, and I've actually done a first one of these things where I came in here. Whoops, let's open it up. There we go. And it asks you something to think about, the statement: how many major disasters have occurred so far this year, 2010, that are related to active tectonic boundaries? I'm not going to ask that question. It pertains to the question in general. But, think about Haiti and Chile and Sumatra and Iceland and what's going on relative to all those things, and how they might be of significance. Okay, so that all plays into it. But you just post on this. It opens up a little window where you can open the title to your response and then your actual response in that box, and you're set to go. I go in and self-grade those things when they're complete. Okay, so that's what's contained there. And then the quiz for Chapter 2 is located there as well. Chapter 3, on the other hand, it has the quiz. It has the first major exam. The first major exam will look a lot like the quizzes, except for there's 50 odd questions available there. They're worth 2 points each, if I recall, something like that. Or I guess actually the points vary depending on the nature of the question. You are allotted 2 hours to do the exam, so hopefully there's plenty of time for you to complete that. And again, the exams are found, the first exam is found under Chapter 3, second exam is found under Chapter 8, third exam is found under Chapter 5, the fourth exam or the final exam is found under the final exam, and the threaded discussions are scattered throughout. It tells you about that in the syllabus and where you can expect to find those things in the given unit where it's assigned. So hopefully that gives you an introduction to how things are structured, and there'll be another series like these, but somewhat shorter because you'll already have this introduction in the lab portion of this course as well. We'll be talking to you again soon. Good luck and have fun.